From a spoiled brat who tries to punch the school cop to a spoiled brat who gets $1,000 per week as allowance and demands that he gets more because it's too little, these are the most spoiled kids of all time. Let's go. So we're going to call a subscriber submitted the first story Avery. So anyways, there's a kid in Avery's class who we're going to call the spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid had been getting cockier and cockier. And he was your kind of standard, typical spoiled kid who, believed that he deserved everything and that everyone should just bow down to him. And this all started one day in class when Avery was kind of like sitting in the middle of the class. He wasn't like totally paying attention, but he was, he was doing his work. He was doing his time. You already know how it is, right? And the spoiled kid was kind of just sitting there. And the spoiled kid started, throwing, little bits of paper at Avery. Kind of, crumpled up balls of paper. So not, so small you wouldn't notice it, but big enough that it's, annoying. So Avery turns around. He's like, what's good? And the spoiled kid's like, wasn't me, dude. And obviously just trying to be annoying. And a little bit of context, Avery and the spoiled kid were not friends. They, had major beef a long time ago, and it's not like they still have beef. That was, third grade beef or something. But they just never, reconciled, so they weren't enemies, but they definitely weren't friends by any means, right? So at this point, the spoiled kid is just, he's just messing with Avery, and he knows that Avery doesn't like him. So after class, Avery's walking to the front of the class with a backpack. He just wants to get to his next class, right? And the spoiled kid comes up to him, is like, hey, man, sorry about that random guy throwing paper spit wads at you. It wasn't me, but I'll let you know if I see who it was. And said it in a tone where it's, very obvious. They both knew who was throwing it, right? So the spoiled kid was just trying to be more and more of a jerk. Avery's like, all right, dude, whatever. And the spoiled kid's like, you don't say whatever to me, and literally pushes his hand onto the wall in front of where Avery was walking to stop him. Unfortunately, right, the spoiled kid who got everything he ever wanted was also a pretty big kid. He just was physically large. I'm not saying he grinded in the gym. He got everything he ever wanted, so why would he try for something? But he was a physically bigger kid, right? So it was a little difficult for Avery to just be like, no, I'm going to do what I want, because, this kid would just kind of block him or whatever. So Avery looks up at him, doesn't look up to him, right? Looks up at him. The spoiled kid looks at him and kind of just gives him this smile. And Avery's just like, this kid is the absolute worst. So this is just an example of what the spoiled kid is like. So the spoiled kid started to get a little bit more and more cocky, right? He started to just believe that he could get away with this running the school. And the spoiled kid definitely had a bit of an inflated ego. Definitely all the ability, because it kind of snowballed in a sense, because the ability to kind of get away with whatever has kind of led him to believe that he could get away with more. And so we went from throwing spitballs at Avery to one day, Avery's walking out of class and he just literally gets pushed onto the frickin' ground. He just gets pushed onto the ground. And he looks up and it's the spoiled kid being like, oh, watch where you're going, dude. You might hurt yourself. Obviously, the biggest, jerk answer possible. Yeah, it was this kid who pushed him onto the ground. It was obviously this kid. And, yeah. So, this kid was starting to do it, and not only to Avery, by the way. So, these were just examples specifically given to me by the subscriber. But the subscriber tells me that this was starting to happen to other people, too. This kid started to become a bully a while ago, but he really became a bully now. He was just picking on kids, basically just being a massive jerk for the sake of being a massive jerk. But it went from being a massive jerk to physically assaulting people. There's definitely a line. I really if you're a jerk to someone, look, it's not good, and you will get life has a way to push back at you, and that will probably happen in some form or another. But I do very solidly draw the line at physically assaulting people. And I think we can all agree with that, right? And the thing is, right, karma was about to come for the spoiled kid. Because the spoiled kid, I don't even know how he got to this point. It's really hard to figure out how one comes to this point. But I think the spoiled kid was just so high on, believing in himself, just so high and mighty, and just believing that he was above everyone. That he was this truly, sent from the gods. I genuinely don't even know where this kid was coming from with this. Because it was so ridiculous, right? But he basically, at one point, this all happened one day, and it was the craziest time ever for Avery. It was unbelievable. This was legitimately unbelievable. So the spoiled kid must have gotten away with punching and like doing all this stuff to all the other kids that he thought that, he was above the school cop. So anyways, there was a cop at Avery's school who was kind of like, he never really had to do anything, except like 2 years ago, there's a one time where he had to like break up a fight between these kids, but that was the last time this cop ever got action. So, I mean, since the school cop really didn't do that much, he would sometimes, I don't know, be like, watch where you're going, guys, like he would like enforce really stupid rules or whatever, because the dude was bored. But this is a time where, the school cop actually got some action. So yeah, this all happened one day when Avery was walking down. This didn't happen to Avery, which, it was just like, he was there though, so he was able to see the whole thing go down. So Avery was walking to class when he sees the spoiled kid is like pushes this other kid up against a locker. And Avery kind of just saw this as a normal everyday occurrence because honestly, up to this point, Avery really didn't know how the spoiled kid didn't get reprimanded. Avery really just genuinely believes that the teachers somehow, by some stroke of luck on the spoiled kid's side, just never caught him doing this stuff. And I guess no one really reported it because they just assumed, since the spoiled kid kept getting away with it, that, I don't know, his parents like paid off the teachers. But in reality, it was probably just because no one reported it because they just didn't think it was going to work, and just teachers didn't happen to see it. Well, this time, someone was able to see it. The school cop saw it. In previous times, the spoiled kid would specifically avoid doing it around the school cop because he believed, like, oh, well, I don't know. I guess he was still kind of scared of the school cop. But that was until now. Because now, the spoiled kid was just so high and mighty and full of himself that he believed that he was above the school cop. He believed that he was like, I don't know, the school cop had nothing on him. So he blatantly pushed some kid up against a locker in front of the school cop. And I think the school cop, still is a little high and mighty himself. So he was so taken aback by the fact that some kid would just blatantly do it. He almost found like a form of disrespect that the kid would just do it in front of him, expecting nothing to happen. So the school cop quickly walks up to the spoiled kid and says, hey, no fight in the halls. And the spoiled kid turns to the school cop and says, you can't tell me what to do. And the school cop legitimately just stood there for a good couple seconds, completely stunned. The man was stunned, unable to speak. Because, imagine, you're a school cop, right? You see some kid fighting some other kid, you go up and you say, you can't be doing that. And he says, you can't tell me what to do. Bro, the school's cop, literally their job is to tell you what to do, is to enforce the rules of the school. What do you mean you're not allowed to tell him what to do? And the spoiled kid gave him a smirk. And honestly, I think the reason why the spoiled kid just got owned so bad was because he was so arrogant that he legitimately gave the cop a smirk after saying, you can't tell me what to do. He smirked afterwards, almost to rub it more in the school cop's face. And the spoiled kid just went back to going, pushing this kid up against a wall. And that's when the school cop moved in and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take you to the front office. And the spoiled kid turns and says, you're not doing anything to me. I don't know who told you that you had the authority to do anything to me, but I'm standing right here, man, and nothing's going to change that. And the school cop moves in to, grab him by the arm, and the spoiled kid sees this, and this is where the spoiled kid messed up. He legitimately swings on the cop, full force, and hits him in the face. And boom, you just hear the smack, right? And the whole, everyone who's walking by, there's a lot of rubbernecking going on anyways. People were slowing down. Some people stopped entirely to listen. But after the spoiled kid hit the school cop across the face, everybody was listening in, dude. Every single person was like, oh my God, this kid actually just went all the way out and did this. So yeah, almost immediately, not immediately, because there was a brief period that the school cop was just in complete disbelief of what just happened. He thought he had a mini, epileptic seizure or something, and he just imagined, or just, his brain produced the fact that he got hit in the face out of nowhere, when the truth was, he just got hit in the face by the spoiled kid. So almost immediately after, right, he just looks up at the spoiled kid, and the spoiled kid is looking at the school cop, looking at him like he's not going to do anything. And it's so puzzling and so confusing because the school cop immediately grabs the spoiled kid and pushes him onto the ground, basically tackles this kid onto the ground. And I think the spoiled kid was so thrown off guard by this because the spoiled kid up to this point had been completely untouched by everybody else. or every other teacher just hadn't done anything. But the truth is, it's just because I guess the teachers didn't see any of this going down. And yeah, that's what happens when you punch the school cop. Sure enough, the spoiled kid got suspended for like a week or something. Had to write an apology to the kid he pushed up against the locker. Had to write an apology to the school cop or whatever. And also, apparently, reports came out that this behavior was a lot more systemic than just the one issue. I don't think Avery said anything about if he personally submitted something, but he did say people in general, so he may have. But anyways, there was kind of an additional part to the spoiled kid's punishment where if there was any reports at all that he does anything like this again, he would just be immediately expelled. Immediately expelled. Even if it was just tripping a kid or something, which isn't good, but a much more minor offense than attacking someone, right? He would just be immediately expelled. And if you thought that spoiled kid was bad, this might be the most spoiled kid ever. And we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story, Calvin. So anyways, Calvin was in class one day, and there was a kid in his class who we're going to call the spoiled kid. And while the last spoiled kid in the other story was definitely more of a spoiled kid in the sense that he was able to get away with anything and he was just never told no, this kid was more of a spoiled kid because his parents were super loaded and they basically gave him literally anything he wanted. Look, if let's say one of you guys, or maybe all of you guys, because if you watch Connor Pugs, you'll grow up to be very rich one day, direct correlation. But let's say maybe you I don't know, work a job, make a business or something like that, win the lottery, who knows, pick the next, I don't know, Dogecoin. You make a lot of money. My suggestion is just if you have kids, make sure that they basically grow up the same way that almost every other kid grows up, with the same perception of value, the same perception of money, the same kind of the most valuable thing you can give a child is perspective. And then eventually, look, obviously, use the perks of money, give them the food that's going to be quality and healthy, give them good health care, make sure that, I do what you need to do, but don't do what, the parents of this spoiled kid did, where they gave him practically unlimited money, and they thought that would solve all the issues of them not being there, of them not being good parents, etc. Nothing will ever solve that issue, and just giving your kid way too much money before they've actually formed a perception of what money really is and the value of a dollar or whatever, right? Then it will be poison to them. And it was poison to the spoiled kid because one day Calvin was in class. The spoiled kid literally starts speaking out of nowhere, just starts talking, right? It's guys, I'm in such a predicament right now. And I don't know, when someone says, guys, I'm in a predicament, I don't know, I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to hear them out because maybe I can give some advice. Maybe I can lend a bit of wisdom. So Calvin felt the same way, but he was not expecting what the spoiled kid was about to say. So the spoiled kid goes on to say, guys, I'm in such a predicament right now. I want to buy these 2 Supreme box logo hoodies, but buying both of them would be $1,400. And I only get $1,000 a week. So I would have to wait 2 weeks allowance to buy both of these hoodies. Guys, I don't know what to do. So first of all, this spoiled kid was either saying this because he was delusional, or this spoiled kid literally just wanted to flex the fact that he got $1,000 a week and wanted to come up with a quote-unquote creative way to accidentally, quote-unquote accidentally tell everyone that he gets $1,000 per week, and he'd do that by saying, oh no, I can't buy X item that costs more than my weekly allowance, which happens to be $1,000 a week, guys. Guys, did you hear that? $1,000 a week. I'm rich. He. Something I don't know. So either way, it's ridiculous. And Calvin looks at the spoiled kid, and everyone else looks at the spoiled kid, or everyone who's listening to him, and kind of says, I don't know, just don't buy the hoodie. Guys, look, I got a solution to your problem. Don't buy the Supreme box logo hoodie. Wow, problem solved. And basically no one really had a lot of sympathy for him, which, I don't know. I feel like I don't really blame them for not having a lot of sympathy for the kid who's complaining about only This poor kid is only receiving $1,000 a week. He must be starving. He can only afford one Supreme Box logo hoodie a week, not two. This kid is impoverished beyond any comprehension of the word impoverished, right? So sad. So yeah, the kids in the class were kind of talking to each other after the class, right? They're all like this kid actually gets $1,000 a week. Like, are you serious right now? And I think the spoiled kid thought that would, like, I don't know, give him a good rep or something like that. But really, it kind of just made kids be like, bro, like, this kid really gets $1,000 a week to do, like, that's ridiculous. It was mostly, all it really did was kind of just stir envy and jealousy, which the thing is, right, I've never really, I've only understood flexing to an extent, but the thing is, right, if you're going to be flexing something, first of all, I suggest just kind of keeping it kind of minimum in most situations, but you also got to understand if you do choose to flex X or Y or whatever, maybe you got the new whatever shoes, right, just realize that there will be jealousy. Like I said, the whole point of it is saying that I have it and you don't at the end of the day. Like, if we're really breaking down the root of it, it's because you want people to know that you have something that perhaps they do not, right? So just be aware of that and be aware of the consequences, that people will be jealous and that behind your back, they might not speak as nicely about you. That's just the truth. That's just reality, right? But this flexing blew up in the spoiled kid's face so bad that not even the subscriber Calvin saw this coming. So basically what ended up happening was that all the kids in the class, on the rides home, on the car rides home, the moms were like, oh, how was school today? And they were like, it was good, I guess. But you know what I heard? Spoiled kid gets $1,000 a week. And I only get $10 a week. I only get $1. I only get $5, right? I don't get anything a week, like a bunch of varied responses. There was a lot of variety in the responses, but one thing was true. None of them got $1,000 a week or anything close to it. So all of a sudden, basically every single mom in the school knows that the spoiled kid gets $1,000 per week. Just for just for being a spoiled kid, right? Just for existing. It's ridiculous. And word started to spread. And by the end of the night, there was mom group chats or whatever, and they were all talking about it. However, I think they forgot that in one of these various Facebook group chats, that the spoiled kid's mom was actually a part of it. And apparently the spoiled kid's mom literally lurked the entire time and didn't say anything. But she soon figured out that her son had been bragging about the fact that he got over $1,000 per week or whatever. And I guess the spoiled kid's mom obviously was not the greatest at parenting, because she gave her very young, impressionable son over $1,000 per week to do whatever he wanted with it, instead of instilling good values into him and kind of making sure that he has the perspective of money first. Kind of just gave him flush with cash for no good reason. So it's kind of on her. But at this point, she actually kind of steps up a little bit, because the next day in class, the spoiled kid comes in and he looks furious. And he turns to all the kids, including Calvin. He's like, you guys did this to me. You guys screwed me over. And they're all like, dude, literally, what are you saying right now? He's like, my mom took away my $1,000 per week not tuition, what's it called? Allowance. I don't get anything anymore. It's because you guys were talking all about it, and she felt embarrassed, and she realized it wasn't good for me, and now I get $0 per week. And all the kids are like, dang, bro, that's tough. I mean, I don't know what to say. They didn't feel that bad. Because now it's like, oh, well, first of all, I'm sure if he asked for money, the mom is still going to be like, sure, you can buy this, right? It just doesn't mean that he's getting $1,000 per week just for doing nothing. But now, oh no, boo-hoo, the kid gets as much as most of the kids get there per week, aka $0, aka $5, right? Oh no, he doesn't get $1,000 per week to waste on stupid stuff. So obviously the kids in the class and Calvin were kind of like, okay. They weren't gloating or anything, but they also didn't feel incredibly bad. Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, man, now you're just living like all of us. That's tough. I don't know what else to say. That's just tough. Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Today we got a story of a spoiled brat who gets exposed. This is a super satisfying karma story that I know you'll enjoy. Let's go. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Errol, and Errol submitted this to me over on Instagram. So if you want to submit your own story, the link is in the description. We're also on Spotify, by the way. But anyways, right, so this all happened in 6th grade. And at the very end of 6th grade, there was like a very big math exam. And this math exam would basically decide which math class you're going to be put into the next year. And there was a lot of emphasis on doing well on it. I mean, they wanted kids to try because, you know, there were apparently like, you know, or maybe in theory, if kids wanted to be in an easier class, they just fail this test on purpose as, you know, if you did poorly on the test, then you could be in the easy math class and then you'd have an easier time next year. But the whole idea is that they changed it so that the big math test at the end of the 6th grade year would also have a pretty big impact on your grade. I mean, it was like kind of, it was a weird mixture of effort-based, but also how well you did. So they were like, all right, good, you need to learn this material, but it also happened to like help determine what math class you're. What I'm trying to say is there's a big test at the end of the year. I went into a lot of unnecessary detail that I received. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, right, so we're going to call, oh, okay, Errol. We already named the subscriber, right? They spent probably about 2 weeks before the test in math class because they intentionally finish up all the like the content that they need to know about like 2 weeks before the test actually is, so that they can dedicate that 2 weeks 100% to the test. So anyways, right, they're in a study group, and in this study group they were put into, it was basically at the very first day before the 2 weeks before class, before the end of class, which is also the day of the test, they were put into a study group, and basically the teacher said, hey, I mean, you can you can study on your own, but you have to at least be at the table with your study group. I just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to ask questions to your peers, especially if like I can't get around to everyone. So this is pretty good in theory. And in the very first day, he said, you guys actually do need to talk with each other. After that, it's up to you. So the first day, Errol sits down, and the people in his study group are him, some other people, and then the spoiled kid. And obviously, right, you know, he isn't known as like, oh, the spoiled kid, right? But that's what we're going to call him for the sake of this video, just because it makes it easier on me. I don't have to remember 1,000 names. And the spoiled kid had always kind of gotten everything he ever wanted. Very standard definition for the spoiled kids in my videos, right? So they sit down and they start talking, and basically what Errol starts talking about and the other kids in their group start talking about is basically what is their plan to study for this exam, because they all know that it's very difficult. They also all know that, you know, it will take a lot of time and effort to do well with, and they all know that, you know, they need to be well prepared. So Errol's going about like, okay, like I'm going to cover chapters 1 through 6 for the first week. Then I'm going to do chapters 7, 8, and 9 and the last couple on the 3 days after that. And then the 3 days before the exam, I'm just going to do a full-on review. And it kind of goes around the circle like that, and people are planning out their study guides or whatever, and asking very basic topics like, oh, is X on the assignment or whatever, and sometimes the teacher would come around and answer it. But the most important detail that you need to know is that the spoiled kid, the one that was, the spoiled kid, the one who was sitting at the group with them, when it kind of went around like, oh, what are you doing to prepare? The spoiled kid said, I'm not going to prepare. I'm an intellectual genius. Errol kind of just looks at him. And the other kids in the class kind of just look at him. Because no disrespect to the spoiled kid, I mean, maybe a little bit, but they've heard him ask questions. And it's good to ask questions. And look, a lot of times in class, I'm asking questions that, you know, sometimes I think back, I'm like, damn, you really were not paying attention if you asked that question. But the spoiled kid was not asking genius level questions, right? He was asking very standard, if not subpar questions. So they were kind of looking at him like, okay, I guess. And, you know, I don't know about you, but most people that are actually very intelligent don't go around telling everyone, I'm very intelligent. I mean, maybe if they lack a lot of emotional intelligence, they might, but, or just situational understanding and the logic behind that. But anyways, right, they had a few suspicions that the spoiled kid was actually not the reincarnation of Albert Einstein. Just a few sneaking suspicions that might have not been the case, But anyways, though. Oh, by the way, leave a like on this video because today is my birthday, and that will be my birthday present if you leave a like on this video right now. It's all I ask. It's free. It'll take 1 second. It may or may not help the video. I don't even know at this point. If it does, it's very small. It just looks nice, so go ahead and do that. But anyways, right, so, the Errol's, like, turns to the spoiled kid after he says, like, I don't even have to try. I'm just literally a genius, and kind of looks at the kid and is like, hey, bro, like, I really think you're going to want to try on this. Like, this is a really big exam. It matters for quite a bit. Little clarification. They actually had, like, 4 or 5 days. There's still, like, a week left of school after the exam. It was kind of just that, like, closing time period where you don't really do a lot, especially in, like, middle school. For me, we had time after our exam. And in college, it's, like, your classes end, then you have the exam. But here, it's like you had the exam, then you had, like, kind of a bookkeeping time and just hanging out or whatever. So they still have a bit of class afterwards. That's important for later on in the video. But anyways, Errol goes on to explain, like, dude, like, you're definitely going to want to study for this. Like, this is a pretty big deal. It's gonna be pretty bad if you don't prepare properly. And the spoiled kid doubles down on, like, no, I'm literally just a freaking genius. You guys are idiots. Like, I'm the greatest. You will see. And Errol didn't dislike this kid necessarily, but was also kind of just like, I don't know, man. I'm not doubting you, even though he definitely was. He was kind of just like, I don't know, bro. Like, I really think you should study for this. I just got a feeling that, like, you're going to want to study. And the kid's like, you know what? You guys just don't see it. You don't understand, like, my genius intellect. Like, you guys don't get me. And the thing was, like, Errol wasn't even, like, trying to hate on this kid, even though it was going to be very easy to hate on this kid, especially since he was like, I'm a genius and you guys aren't, and that's the reason why I have to study and you guys don't, or you have to study and I don't. But Errol was like, all right, this kid definitely, like, solved a math problem and was just like, damn, I'm a genius, bro. Anyways, though, the spoiled kid kind of just continues on doing what he's doing. And for the next 2 weeks, Errol and most of his classmates do spend a considerable amount of time preparing for this test. This doesn't mean that they all do as well as they wanted, but they at least all put in a good effort, and the results have at least some correlation to the effort they put in. But let me just give you a little bit of a spoiler. The spoiled kid did not put in any effort over the next 2 weeks. He did not study for a second. He just played on his Xbox all day and kind of just expected that his vastly superior intellect, in quotes, it would just be so strong and so great that it'd be able to guide him to 110% on this exam or whatever, right? Not the case. Anyways, they get into class. It's the day of the exam. Everyone's pretty nervous. And everyone's nervous except the spoiled kid. At least that's the observation Errol makes. And, like, everyone's checking over, like, oh, my God, I only have 6 pencils. What if all 6 of them break? I need a 7th pencil. Someone help. Like, those kind of, like, unnecessary nerves. It's like, you're worried. I mean, necessary. I mean, it's a big exam. You know how that goes. But sure enough, right, they're all standing there, and Errol notices that the only one who isn't super nervous and isn't super freaking out or whatever is the spoiled kid. He is standing there, and he has this almost a smug look of confidence on his face. It is like the strangest thing Errol's ever seen, because I don't know, he knew that he prepared as well as he could, and he did not have the same level of confidence as the spoiled kid. So part of him started to believe, I mean, maybe the kid actually does have a genius intellect. Maybe this kid is actually, like, an absolute baller when it comes to tests, and he doesn't even need to study. I mean, very soon you'll figure out that not the case, but anyways, they go into the test, and Errol happens to sit right behind the spoiled kid. And a lot of it's multiple choice, but a lot of it is also free response. And Errol goes through, and he feels like he does pretty good. And he's kind of routinely checking in with the spoiled kid, almost just to see how well he was doing, just to see how much progress. The spoiled kid very quickly finished the first page. So quickly, in fact, that Errol, in a retrospect, like at the time he didn't notice, but with future details, he now has come to the conclusion, and probably the right conclusion, that the spoiled kid just randomly filled in the bubbles. Because he got, like, the first page done in, like, 15 seconds, which is almost impossible if you don't randomly fill in the bubbles, right? So they get all that stuff done. or he gets the first couple pages done. And when it comes to the actual free response written stuff, by the time Errol is done, the spoiled kid is still on the first page of free response with like nothing written down, like little kind of notes. You know, when you're trying to like approach a problem and you just write a little bit and you're like, no, it's not how I approach this. So you write a little bit of something else and you're like, no, I can't do this either. That's basically all the spoiled kid did. And, Errol was able to, Errol left the exam with still like 30 minutes to go because, he looked over his work and he finished. So he's like, well, maybe the spoiled kid picks it up in the second half or whatever. And he has a Hail Mary, like amazing comeback. And, there's still a chance that he'll do pretty well. So they get the weekend, but they get their grades back on Monday. So they all walk into class and they sit down. And the teacher basically hands them a little slip of paper. And on that slip of paper is your grade and also the math class that you'll be in next year. Yeah, sounds a little demeaning. And it's like, oh, you did bad. You're going to be in a poor math class. But the teacher also said, it's partly what you requested because you were able to request which math class you wanted to be in. And he said partly how you did throughout the year and partly how you did on this exam. Because this exam is somewhat a reflection of how you did throughout the year and your overall, are you going to do well in a higher level versus a lower level math class is what it adds up to be, right? So the teacher hands around the paper and, Errol did pretty well and he ended up in the math class that he felt pretty happy with or pretty comfortable with. I don't think he'd be happy if he was in a math class higher than he thought he should be or lower because he wants to be, somewhat challenged. He wants, it's easier with like colleges and stuff or whatever, right? And, he looks around and the spoiled kid, he can't see what's on the spoiled kid's piece of paper because sometimes you're able to like look over, you can kind of get a sense of what's on like someone's, I mean, it's not great to do, but, don't lie, man. Like you've definitely like kind of taken a little quick glance around, right? Just like, oh, okay, I'll look over here and, oh, I just happened to see what that person got. Oh no, they did not do well. Now I feel better about myself. We've all been there. It's not a good thing to do, but it happens. But Errol was not able to see what was on this kid's paper because he very quickly flipped over and flipped it back almost immediately. So Errol kind of assumed that he did terrible. And he was like, okay, well, I mean, kid didn't study and he just did not do well. Okay, that's fine. That makes a lot of sense. However, at lunch, and remember, this was kind of more of a chill part. Like this was more of a chill couple days because all the exams and tests were done at this point. It was almost like a celebratory week. So they were all at lunch and the spoiled kid happens to sit down with Errol and some of his friends. And the spoiled kid's like, man, like, Errol, how did you do on that exam? Errol in this position thinks like, oh, well, this kid probably didn't do that well. And, whatever, like, I'll tell him. He's like, yeah, I got an 88 on the exam, which that was pretty good. It was a hard exam and an 88 is a very solid grade. And the spoiled kid's like, only an 88? Are you serious, bro? You only got an 88? Dude, I got 100%. And Errol in his head is like, there's no way. And the spoiled kid's like, yeah, dude, and guess what? I didn't even study for a second. And you studied probably for hours and hours. And I got 100 and you got an 88. So work smarter, not faster, bro. Which is like a good expression for some things. But this kid definitely just heard it somewhere and was like, I'm going to work smarter because I'm a genius. And this kid's an idiot, so take the L. And Errol was like, oh, okay, bud. Like, that's cool for you. Like, whatever, right? And for the next couple days, this happens in class. This happens like all over the place. The spoiled kid is relentlessly bragging about the fact that he got 100% because of his genius intellect. And he made the mistake to brag about this in front of the teacher that assigned the test, right? He was sitting in a group and Errol wasn't in this group, but he was in one group like behind them so he could hear everything that was going on. And the spoiled kid was like, yeah, so I didn't even study for that exam and I got a 100%. And the guy's like, dude, that's crazy. Like, I didn't do so hot. Like, I got a 70-something. Which, 70-something isn't the greatest grade, but it's not like he failed or something, right? And the spoiled kid's like, dude, I didn't even need to study and I got 100. And you spent in all this time and you didn't even get above an 80. Like, oh my God, bro. Like, it must suck being you. Like, I bet you wish you were me. And the thing was, right, very cruel statement, especially from a kid who did not do as well as he was leading on. Spoiler, the spoiled kid did pretty bad. I'm not going to tell you the exact answer until the very end, but the fact that he's not, like, I get it, you feel bad about how you did on the exam, but don't be coming for other people. Like, that's where we draw the line. It's like, okay, you can feel uncomfortable with how you did, but we're drawing the line there, bro. Like, come on now, you can't be doing that. And the teacher overheard this. And Errol didn't really notice these things until retrospect. For example, the kid spamming through the questions, multiple choice, doing them randomly. Errol didn't really notice this until he learned exactly what the kid got as a grade. Also, the teacher noticing that, Errol's like bragging about, or the spoiled kid's bragging about how well he did. The teacher didn't notice this. Errol didn't notice the teacher was noticing this really until after, and he put all the pieces together when the teacher accidentally exposes him, which I'll show you. And okay, I did like air quotes around accidentally, but I just remembered that you guys can't see me, so I did air quotes around the accidental part, as you guys will see in a second. So the teacher's listening to the spoiled kid basically berate this kid for like, you're an idiot, I'm a genius, take the L, Fortnite dance, whatever, right? And the teacher's like, oh, all right, class, well, let's just put on a movie, right? Let's put on something, just have a nice relaxing rest of your day. And the teacher airplays his screen. And when the screen goes up there, it's not the movie on the screen. In fact, it is something else besides the movie. It is a profile of a student. So basically, with their grading software, yes, you can see it in aggregate where you see everyone's grades, but you can also click on an individual student, right? And it'll show like what their average grade is, what math class they're going in, and also how well they did on the final assessment. And you know who the teacher accidentally showed on the screen for like 5 or 10 seconds before fixing it? Oh, yeah, this was an accident, right? He showed the spoiled kid. The spoiled kid's grade was put on the screen. Was this on purpose? The truth is, Errol doesn't really know, but he doesn't think that it was a coincidence. And if it wasn't a coincidence, kind of a savage move by the teacher. Like, I'm not going to lie, a little harsh, but kid kind of did deserve it, right? Kid really did deserve it there. So on the screen, you saw a spoiled kid's name, and you saw what he actually got on the final test. Spoiler, it was not the 100% from his genius intellect that he was telling everyone. In fact, it was a 32%. And look, if you got a 32% on a test before, it feels bad, man. So I'm not coming for you. But I will be coming for you if you go around telling people that you got 100 and that you're a genius and that everyone else is an idiot because they studied and you didn't have to study at all. That's where I draw the line. At that exact very situation, I draw the line. But yeah, so everyone looks like, not everyone sees it, but the kids that were sitting with the spoiled kid, who the spoiled kid was berating, saw it. Errol saw it, and the teacher's like, oh, my fault, and he quickly switches over to, like, Netflix to put on, like, a documentary or something. And the kid, like, Errol just has this big old grin on his face. Not because he wants someone to do poorly, but because he's just like, okay, this kid came for me yesterday because I got a good grade and I studied, but his grade was supposedly better and he didn't study. And he was saying how he was such a genius and I wasn't. And now look at who's the genius now. Neither of us, but especially not him. And the kid in front that, like, didn't do so well and the spoiled kid was berating, literally just, like, turned to the spoiled kid and was like, genius, huh? And the spoiled kid, his face was bright red. He was not responding to the kid in front of him at all. And the kid in front of him was like, oh, no, genius, right? You were talking about how you're a genius and you didn't have to study and how you got 100, and how I'm an idiot. And I studied and even got a 40 or 70 or whatever. The spoiled kid at this point is bright red like a cherry. And he runs out of the classroom and says, I have to go to the bathroom very quickly to the teacher. And sprints out of that classroom. And yeah, it was a little bit of a tough lesson. But bro, at the end of the day, that's a life lesson. Hopefully that kid will remember that for a very long time. A little thing about being humble, and also, if you lie, it can come back to bite you. Like, that's just something that can happen. So yeah, the spoiled kid did not get 100%, and he's not the next Einstein, the reincarnation of Einstein, believe it or not.
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it, do it.
Today we have a perfectly satisfying story of when a teacher humbles a spoiled brat who is just going way too far. I know you'll enjoy this. Let's go. The first one we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Aiden. And by the way, you can submit stories of your own to my Instagram or Twitter to submit them to my DMs. And also please be following me on there. And so anyways, this all started when Aiden was in class and it was a class project. And these class projects were randomized, meaning that Aiden couldn't choose who was in his class project. And, when this happens to me, I don't really think that much about it. A lot of times it's just an opportunity to either meet someone new, but there's always that time where, there's some people in your class that will not be doing the adequate amount of work. You just know for a fact that, if I'm put in a group with this person, I'm going to be having to carry all the slack for the group. And there's just really not a lot that you can do about it. Well, in Aiden's class, there's this kid who we're just going to call the spoiled kid for the sake of simplicity. And, the spoiled kid in this situation, he was just kind of known as the kid who just really never did anything and always somehow got away with it. Everyone just kind of assumed that, he paid someone to do his homework and paid someone to do all of his projects. And, on tests, he probably just didn't do that well, but since, he handed in all the homework and assignments with good quality, his grade was okay. Was the teacher probably suspicious? Yeah, probably, but it probably wasn't enough for him to actually do anything about it. So Aiden was just sitting there, and he was really hoping when the teacher was about to read out the randomized group names that, okay, life will be okay if I'm not put in a group with this spoiled kid. And sure enough, the teacher read out the names, and Aiden and a few other people were in a group with this spoiled kid. And this was a 3-week-long project, meaning it was a very big and a very substantial project. And was definitely not one that, you could do by yourself if, all 3 of your group members were slacking. So right away they got to it, and, Aiden and his, the other 2 people in his group, besides the spoiled kid, actually were pretty good about, divvying up the work and trying to get it done. And the spoiled kid always acted as if, he was along with it, he understood, he was going to do it, and he just never did it. And 2 weeks go by. We're going to skip ahead 2 weeks. So 2 whole weeks go by, and the spoiled kid has not done anything. And every single time he's like, oh, I'm getting to it, oh, I'll do it. And after 2 weeks, Aiden just, at their class meeting, because for the project, they did normal stuff in class, and they didn't focus on this project in class. They were given 3 weeks to do so out of school, so yeah, I understand why the teacher didn't give them a ton of time in class to do it, but in class, they had a 5-minute period at the beginning where they would meet up with their groups and they would talk about their project, is anything you need to say to your group members for organization, stuff like that. And Aiden just straight up said, man, you're just not doing it. And the thing is, right, the spoiled kid had this kind of facade for a while where he was at least pretending as if, he was going to do the work. And at this point, he must have just dropped the mask because he said, yeah, I'm not going to do it. What are you guys going to do? This kid straight up had the audacity to say, I'm not going to do it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? And, at this point, they didn't really know what they were going to do about it. And Aiden's like, man, that's not fair. This is a big part of our grade. We all need to do something. Is it really fair to have us do, what we're doing, to do all the work? Is it really fair to make us do all the work here? Okay, obviously it wasn't. And the spoiled kid was like, I don't know. You're going to do it, right? And you guys are going to do it either way, even if I help or not. And I'm probably not even smart enough to add anything of value. So maybe me stepping out of it is actually helpful for you guys. And, at this point, this kid was just, the spoiled kid was trying to trick these guys into trying to believe that, oh, what he was doing is the right thing or whatever. But, Aiden was not having it at this point. So after class that day, Aiden goes up to the teacher. He says, hey, can I talk to you after class? And the teacher's like, yeah, sure, what's up? Bell rings, class is out, kids leave, and Aiden, whenever you stay behind to talk to the teacher, you'll probably sit in your desk, take a really long time to pack up your backpack, maybe tie your shoes. You don't want to go immediately up to the teacher because they'll be like, ooh, why is this kid talking to the teacher? Is he in trouble? Or I don't know. That's at least what I do. I'm I don't want anyone thinking anything about me in general, but especially then. And, so he waits for the teacher, and, once everyone's packed out or everyone's left the classroom, the teacher's like, hey, Aiden, what's up? What do you want to talk about? And Aiden goes on to explain everything that just happened. And the teacher's like, wow, that's really unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. He said, I definitely can intervene. I definitely can step in and try and help here. He said, however, I feel like it would be best if you just continue to try and, get the spoiled kid to do something. It's not the end of the project yet. I understand you guys might feel like you're behind because you're working as 3 people for a project intended for 4. He said, thank you for letting me know. We will keep this kind of line of communication, we will keep this line of communication open because I really need to know what is actually going on, especially when it comes to the grading process. But for now, all I really ask is just try and get to him, try and make sense for him, because, and the teacher actually admits, and I don't know if the teacher was supposed to admit this, but the teacher admits to Aiden that, the spoiled kid's grade it's kind of in a limbo period where because this project's pretty big, if the spoiled kid does really bad on this project, then, he might end up being in kind of the failing or very severe standing in the class, right? And that could mess up a lot of things. He said, I feel like, this kid knows that, that he really needs to do well on this, and that I said in the beginning, I will be checking for individual participation. He said, I don't know. This kid knows that this is kind of his big ticket to either make it or break it with this assignment. So he said, I just want to hold out. And Aiden can understand that. He definitely can see where the teacher's coming from. And it's not like the teacher said that's too bad. The teacher is probably, it sounds like by this conversation, will issue a punishment if necessary. Just wants to give, the spoiled kid a little bit more time to do the right thing. So anyways, Aiden goes back to his group members, and Aiden doesn't necessarily tell his group members that he told on the kid because he doesn't want to have that kind of reputation of because the thing is, the project wasn't over and he's already told the teacher. I think that Aiden did the right thing here because the teacher has the right to know. And also because, Aiden shouldn't have to do the work of 2 people if he's not supposed to, right? And anyways, the week goes on and more time goes by. And it gets to a point where the teacher on this Thursday, because they're presenting on Friday, the teacher on the Thursday says, all right, guys, I'm going to give you a slip where you can say which, I'm going to give you a slip and I'm going to have you guys write it by yourselves, and please write your names on it, but your teammates will not see it. I want you to honestly give feedback of how much work and what work your teammates have done. I'm trying to grade this on an individual basis. Obviously, if you all give me something good, then you will all get partially a good grade as long as you contributed, stuff like that. And at this point, Henry started to, and the teacher said, and I will be doing that at the end of class, so please don't leave early for any reason. I'll email you if you need to get it for some reason, right? So at this point, not Henry, that's the name of the next guy, the next story. At this point, Aiden is okay, here's a good opportunity, because sure enough, the spoiled kid had not done anything, even though his grade was kind of up to it. The thing is, though, I don't think the spoiled kid was aware that, he was going to get such direct feedback from his group mates. And remember, he already basically told them, I'm not doing anything, and there's nothing you can do about it. So at this point, the spoiled kid is starting to get a little bit worried. He's like, oh, shoot, man, I am actually going to be outed for this. I'm actually, I'm going to be the teacher's going to know, and because all my teammates, they're not going to have my back on this. Very clearly, I've not had their back. He's like, I need to figure out a way quickly. I need to figure this out. So the spoiled kid goes up to Aiden. He's like, hey, buddy. And Aiden's like, hello. Remember, Aiden was kind of put off by the fact that he was like, hey, buddy, because they aren't friends. They really aren't friends. And definitely after that, the spoiled kid went on to say, I'm not doing any of the work and there's nothing you can do about it. They weren't close like that. Nah, not at all. So Aiden was kind of taken aback. He's like, what's up? And in his head, he's like, what do you want from me? Because honestly, that's what it's all about. What do you want from me? You wouldn't talk to me otherwise, and I know that for a fact. And so the spoiled kid goes on to say, so, you know how we're doing those little reviews? Those little, performance reviews? And how you're going to rate how much everyone else contributed? And Aiden looked at him, and Aiden knew immediately what, he's like, okay, he wants me to fib, but I don't know why, and I don't know how he's going to ask. I mean, he knows why, because he doesn't want to fail, but he doesn't know how he's going to ask exactly. So the spoiled kid kind of looks around him, and then it's like, so, I know I didn't contribute that much. And Aiden looks at him with this kind of look of, that much? Bro, you contributed nothing, and you said so proudly. You proudly declared that you did literally nothing. Like, that was a proud statement from you. And Henry, the spoiled kid goes on to be like, and, the grade really does depend. I do need this grade. I'll be honest, guys. So I was wondering, if you wanted to, just rate me nicely, and, I will just happen to give you this $5 bill. And he takes a $5 bill out of his wallet. And he said, look, I'll give you this $5 bill, and all you got to do is just rate me nicely. Like, that is so easy at this point. You guys have already done all the work. It doesn't help you guys to turn me in. In fact, you'll only be $5 poorer if you don't turn me in. I think this is a great deal for both of us. The thing is, though, the teacher of this class had overheard this entire conversation. And remember, the teacher also had the additional context of what was really going on from Aiden. So, since Aiden was sitting in the front of the class, the teacher happened to be close enough, and I think the spoiled kid thought that the teacher was just out of earshot, but it turns out the teacher was just in earshot. So the teacher walks up to them, and he grabs the $5 bill, and he looks at both of them, and he looks at the spoiled kid. He's like, come with me. And the spoiled kid kind of knows he just got caught, but the spoiled kid has no idea about what the teacher's about to do. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment spoiled down below. I just like to see how many people made it this far. If you want to continue supporting the channel and help me out a lot, all you need to do is just keep on watching these videos. Binge watching old videos supports the channel more than you can even imagine. Like, I was pretty sick for the last week. I'm doing great now. Thanks for all your concerns in the comment section. I do read them. But the channel actually did really well thanks to you guys watching old videos. It helped boost them to new people even. We actually had a bit of a view spike when I wasn't posting at all, which is kind of like, maybe I should continue. Maybe that's the strategy, just not posting. Also, if you want to submit stories, Instagram, Twitter, I said that in the beginning, but also if you are a Spotify listener or you like using Spotify, just know that these videos are actually out as podcasts. It is, I think, the first link in the description, or just look up Connor Pugs on Spotify. If you haven't already done so, please rate the podcast 5 stars. I really would appreciate that. With that being said, leave a like if you haven't already, subscribe with notifications on, and let's get into the rest of the story, and then the second story, which I think is pretty cool too. So the teacher has caught the spoiled kid at this point, and, the teacher is like, asked the spoiled kid to come with him. And most people, in this position, of the spoiled kid's position, was probably thinking like, ah, shoot, I just got caught. I'm probably going to have to go to the front office. He's probably going to have a private talk with me. But this teacher was on demon time, bro. This teacher was he was just, for some reason, the teacher wanted to make a kind of an example of this kid. So the teacher walks to the front of the class. He's like, I need everyone's attention. And this is where the spoiled kid knows that he messed up. And the teacher goes on to say, I need everyone's attention. So I just overheard a conversation of one student who will not be named. But the thing is, the teacher brought the student up to the front of the class, so it was obvious who it was. That was like the crazy part. A student who will not be named, who offered up $5 to each of his classmates or each of his teammates to say that he did work when he did none of the work. He said, the teacher goes on to say, not only is this lying, to me, which will immediately get you an F, and the kid up there is just like, oh no. He said, but it's also disingenuous to all of you guys, and especially his teammates. I give you group projects so that you guys can create something really cool in a certain amount of time, and it would be much harder if I made these individual projects. I give you teammates so that, you learn to work with people and you can make something really cool in a short amount of time. He said, and it really just irks me when people try to abuse this system. Please note that I will catch on to you. If you try and abuse the system, if you break the rules or anything like that, I will catch on to you. And to all the people doing this fairly and correctly, keep doing what you're doing. That is all. Go back to what you're doing. And at this point, Aiden is just sitting there, just like, it felt a little bad for the spoiled kid. The spoiled kid wasn't being the greatest guy throughout the whole thing. Not even close, but did he really deserve this? I don't know. Tell me in the comment section if you think this was too far, if this was good. And yeah, then they watches as the spoiled kid is walked out of the classroom with the teacher. And Aiden doesn't know exactly what happened to the spoiled kid, but he believes he probably got an F on the assignment and he probably went to the front office, and who even knows what happened past then. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted the next story Henry. So anyways, right, Henry was in a class that had every single week a quiz. And instead of having tests, this was a very unique style. They had no tests except like one final assessment and one midterm. But they had no like unit tests or anything like that. And it was a math class. What they had instead was every single week there would be a quiz on the material. And the teacher, and every single week, it was always pretty hard. So there's like some teachers that give you quizzes that are kind of very much, do you understand basically what's going on? And then there's teachers that give you quizzes that are like, here's the hardest possible example I could find. Solve it or die. I mean, it's either or. There's no in-betweens. And unfortunately, this teacher was definitely more the second category. And for that reason, the quizzes were very difficult. Sure, they had a bit of a curve or whatever, but the quizzes were still extremely difficult. We're going to call the subscriber Henry, by the way. In Henry's class, there's this kid who we're going to call Ben. And, Ben, one week, came up to Henry and says, hey, man, this quiz is hard, right? And Henry's like, yeah, the quizzes are really hard. And Ben's like, what if I was to tell you that I know exactly what was going to be on the quiz tomorrow? And Henry's like, what are you talking about? And, Ben's like, don't question my methods, but, I know exactly what's on the quiz tomorrow. Normally, I sell this. I sell this information, but a lot of people probably don't trust me. So what I do is, if you want to try it out, I will, give you the service for free for one trial, and then from there we can talk it out. And at this point, Henry was like, whoa, what's going on? Henry was struggling with these quizzes, and he's not going to lie, he was like kind of interested in the help. Henry says for me to tell you guys, don't cheat. Don't buy information like this. First of all, it can go really wrong for you if the person gets busted and your name's on their list, or they just tell on you, because why would they not? There's no code for them not to, So in general, just don't do that. Not just you're going to get in trouble, but, you'll be robbed of your learning. That's the worst thing ever or something. I don't know. Just you'll probably get in trouble and it's not worth it. But anyways, Henry was like, okay, well, yeah, I'm actually kind of curious, like, what are the answers? And this guy, Ben, says, hey, like, I can't tell you them until tomorrow morning. And their class was late at, like, the last class of the day, so knowing the answers by the morning would be soon enough. And Henry was like, can you not tell me them now? And, Ben goes on to say, I can't tell you my methods, but I only know them by, Friday morning. Henry, getting this first one for free, was kind of like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And sure enough, Friday morning came around, and this Ben came up to Henry, and Henry's like, hey, how's it going? And Ben immediately just said, the first question is going to be like a derivative question. It's going to be x cubed, not that hard. The next one is you're going to have to find like area under the curve of this tangent function. So he basically goes on to say every single question that they're going to be asked. And then he said, I also can tell you the answers. The biggest thing was the question, because then you can figure out like how to do the answers beforehand. And, by the time it was over, Ben was like, okay, you'll see today that these were actually the questions. And tomorrow and next week, like, if you want to get these again, all I do is I charge $5. And Henry in his head was like, $5, like, that's going to add up. But then he's like, but this is a huge part of my grade. Maybe it is worth it. So Henry goes in, and sure enough, on the quiz were exactly those questions. And Henry says, like, how did this kid know? Like, how did he know? So the next week comes around, and Ben is like, hey, so do you want to, like, take me up on my offer? And Henry goes like, hey, man, like, I really appreciate it. I just want to continue doing these legit. And, Ben was like, all right, that's fine. Just, where I am if, school's getting a little difficult. And I don't know, maybe you need a bit of a break, or you just need a bit of a grade boost. You know who to come to. And with that, Henry was just so weirded out. He's like, okay, sure, fine. And he was just so curious. How did he know all these answers? The thing is, though, Henry didn't have class with Ben It's just the class he took had the instructor had many periods. I think the instructor actually had like 3 different classes. And months later, Henry was actually not doing so well. He was like, okay, maybe I need to go find Ben. And, he goes to try and find Ben, and he just can't find him anywhere. So he asks a friend, he's like, hey, like, do you know where, like, Ben, and then insert last name is? And his friend's like, dude, you didn't hear? That kid got expelled. And, Henry's like, what? And Henry's friend goes and says, yeah, like, I'll tell you all about it. So basically what happened was that Ben, like, learned that the teacher made the tests way in advance. And what the teacher would do is, by the time her last class at the end of the day, was over, she would leave her tests in a big packet on Thursday night on her desk, so that she would remember to make copies of them Friday morning when she came in. She wouldn't have this packet out on her desk normally, but she left it out there just to make sure, just to be like, okay, I need to remember to print these out before it's too late or my class comes in, kind of like to help her remember. So for some reason, Ben either saw this or learned of this, or maybe on purpose or accident, learned that this was the case. So every single day, because like the teachers at the school didn't lock up. It was the staff that came around and locked up. So before the staff locked up or the cleaning person locked up, and after the teacher had left, Ben would await in the bathroom, and then he would go in very quickly and take out his phone and take a photo of all the questions in the quiz. And then the next morning, he'd charge his fee or whatever, and he was making actually a decent amount of money because there's a lot of kids in a lot of these sections. However, running a business, quote unquote, like this, you're eventually going to get caught, because eventually one person who Ben offered this to contacted the teacher and said what was going on. So the teacher, having a suspicion of how Ben was doing it, but wanted to figure out how Ben was doing it, before, cutting him, trying to get him in trouble, because maybe they don't have enough evidence, or even if they do get Ben in trouble, they don't want this to happen again. So they actually staked out, and they had a feeling like, okay, I don't keep these records online, so it has to be something with with the piece of paper that I have all the information on. So the teacher did what they always did and waited in the classroom and was recording, had a camera out recording the whole thing. And the teacher apparently waited and saw Ben go in, take a photo, and that was it. The teacher had it on recording. The teacher was able to get 5 or 6 other testimonies of people either using the service or being offered the service. And the people who were using the service, the teacher said, you're a clean slate from here on out if you do help me with this. So yeah, the teacher got, enough evidence and had a whole case against Ben. And Ben didn't even know until it hit him. And then immediately, Ben was just told to go to the front office, shown all the evidence against him, and bam, he was out. Because I think he already had some kind of strike against him. And unfortunately, Henry did not do super well in that class, but at least he didn't get expelled for
Click on the video
answers.
on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it. Do it.
Today we got some stories of some spoiled brats who think that they truly do rule the world just because daddy has a little bit of money. I know for a fact you'll enjoy this, so sit back, relax, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's just jump right into the stories. So we're going to call a subscriber who submitted the first story Ahmed. Anyways, right, so there's a kid in Ahmed's class who, he was the spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid truly did believe that just because, he had parents who were very rich, that he could literally do anything and that everyone wanted him. And there was a girl in Ahmed's class, and also in the spoiled kid's class, who was very pretty. She was very nice. She was everything that anyone could have wanted, or any guy could have wanted, or any girl could have wanted, right? And, Ahmed had a little bit of a crush on her. He's not going to lie, guys. He's not going to lie. But at the same time, right, he knew that, she probably wasn't into him. But he also knew for a fact that she was not into the spoiled kid. However, one day, the spoiled kid sat down next to Ahmed and his friends. He said, boys, I will bet you $10 that the girl, I don't know, let's call her Claire, right? Claire's gonna fall in love with me tomorrow. And Ahmed is like, bro, I guarantee, bro, that is not the case. I guarantee that's not gonna happen. Sure, I'll take you up on this bet. And sure enough, his friends also did. It was actually a bet structured. The spoiled kid was like, I will pay you each $10. And only one of you needs to pay me $10 if I win. So it was a pretty good bet. So anyways, Ahmed is a little bit like, okay, what's this kid's plan? What's his angle? I know for a fact she's not into him now. And he says he can get her by tomorrow. So yeah, sure enough, tomorrow rolls around. And the spoiled kid walks in. And he has one of those Supreme shirts. You know the shirts that go for like $500 because it says Supreme on it? And it's probably just like a standard Hanes t-shirt or whatever with some like paint on it, bro. Yeah, the spoiled kid walked in, very proudly showing off the fact that he had his Supreme t-shirt on. And sure enough, he walks back to the back of the class and he looks at Ahmed. He's like, checkmate, baby. And Ahmed is like, bro, what? Like, I don't get what you're saying. What do you mean checkmate, bro? Like, what do you mean checkmate? And the kid's like, well, bro, do you not see my Supreme t-shirt on? There's no way she can resist. Guys, look, if you're into the hype beast stuff, that's totally fine. You can like whatever you like. But let me just say, from my own life experience and observations, I'm pretty sure that a girl will not go down to her knees and beg to be with you just because you have that new Supreme Gucci brick in your back pocket, right? You're not gonna whip out the Louis Vuitton brick and be like, yo, marry me. And she'd be like, oh my God, yes. Yeah, that is probably not gonna happen. Just a heads up. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot. Who knows? I mean, I might be an idiot and be right here. I don't know. Both are possible. But anyways, the spoiled kid goes up to the girl that he's a crush on. He's like, so, Claire, hello there. Claire looks up and is like, hi there, spoiled kid. And spoiled kid's like, so I was wondering, did you want to go on a date with me this Friday? And Claire was completely thrown off guard. So she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to be seeing anyone right now. No offense, it's not personal. I just don't think I want to see anyone. And spoiled kid's like, oh, you must not have seen. And he turns around and he like flexes out his chest to show very, very prominently that he had, the Supreme t-shirt on. And she's looking at him. She's like, what am I looking at? He's like, the t-shirt. Look at the t-shirt. She's like, oh, Supreme. Okay, that's very nice. Are you saying that you're Supreme? And he's like, no, it is a very expensive streetwear brand, and you must like me because of it. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be dating anyone. So spoiled kid very angrily walks to the back of the classroom. And he did not have the money to give them because he expected so confidently that he was going to win, that she was going to fall in love with him because of the t-shirt he was wearing, that the spoiled kid literally didn't even bring the money. He just expected that, like, no, he was going to be fine, guys. Like, why are you even questioning, bro? Like, obviously this kid's going to be fine. But no, that was not the case. So yeah, the next day comes around, he brings in the money, and he gives it to Ahmed and his friends. Anyways, we're going to call the subscriber submitted the next story Ibrahim. So there's a kid in Ibrahim's class who was the spoiled kid, right? He was a very standard, stereotypical spoiled kid. And sure enough, right, at Ibrahim's school, you could either bring in your own lunch or you could have the school lunch. The school lunch was atrocious. It was awful. There was no redeeming qualities about the school lunch. Nothing about it was good. It was awful, and Ibrahim just kind of dealt with it every single day. As everyone who went to the school dealt with it. He dealt with it like they did, It's just how it goes. It's literally just how it goes, man. So sure enough, right, this all happened one day. And the spoiled brat is sitting there. And you hear him start to freak out, so people turn around. And do you guys know why the spoiled brat was freaking out? He was freaking out because he forgot to bring in the packed lunch that his mother had made him. Because the spoiled brat would always bring in his own lunch, which I can't blame him. Like, I probably would too at this school. But his mom would always bring him in like, okay, do you want beef Wellington or filet mignon this morning, son? He'd be like, those are my options? Ugh, disgusting. No, but, he would always bring in his own lunch and it would always be super awesome or whatever. And he was freaking out because he started to realize that he needed to eat the school lunch. So anyways, they all walk into the cafeteria, and Ibrahim is behind the spoiled kid. And he hears the spoiled kid, like, just mumbling about, oh my God, man, I'm gonna have to eat this stuff. What if I die? What if I get chlamydia, bro? What if I explode from this, bro? I don't think my delicate stomach could take something like this. I'm not gonna make it. I should call my mom. I should call my dad. Just kind of freaking out the entire time. And Ibrahim's kind of just thinking to himself, bro's really never had a normal school lunch before. That's absolutely crazy. So sure enough, the spoiled kid grabs a tray, gets in line, and looks at the lunch lady, who's scooping out very mysterious meat onto people's plates. And the spoiled kid, the lunch lady, puts on his plate, takes a whiff of it, gags. And then, when the spoiled kid goes to sit down, Ibrahim looks over and notices that the spoiled kid breaks down into tears, is straight up crying. There are tears spilling down his face because he needs to eat the school lunch. And he's like, no, I just wanted my filet mignon, and this is what I get. Am I a bad person? Have I done something to deserve this? And, everyone's looking around. I think he was, looking for sympathy, but you're not gonna get a lot of sympathy when literally everyone else at the school has to eat the lunch too. It's not like, wow, you're going through something really hard and unique. It's like, no, you're going through something that literally everyone else at the school is going through, bro. I'm sorry. They're not going to feel bad for you. I don't know how else to say it. So yeah, after that point on, Ibrahim, or the spoiled kid, would never, ever eat the school lunch again. And he would always take out his filet mignon, his beef Wellington, I don't know, he would take out the craziest food ever, right? And he would always tell everyone about the stories of that one time he ate at the school cafeteria. And he would tell the people at lunch at the school cafeteria who are eating the cafeteria food. They're not going to be entertained by a story of you. Oh my God, guys, you're not going to believe it. I ate the food that you're eating right now. I almost died. They're going to be like, bro, shut up. Anyways, we're going to call a subscriber who submitted the next spoiled kid story, Nasir. So Nasir's school was going on a bus trip to New York City. It was kind of like their big school trip or whatever. So they all get on, and in Nasir's grade, there is one kid who is the spoiled rich kid, right? This just a very standard description. I don't have to go into details. You already know what he's like. So anyways, they get off the bus, single file line, and they're walking into the streets of New York City. And the spoiled rich kid comes up to Nasir, and it's like, oh my God. And he points to someone, and it's just a normal person. And he's like, oh my God, Nasir, help. There are poor people around here. And Nasir's like, bro, what? And the spoiled kid's like, Nasir, I'm really scared. I'm used to you guys, I'm used to the poor people at my school. Like you, Nasir. And Nasir's like, bro. He's like, but I'm in New York City right now. I'm surrounded by so many poor people, I can't take it this year. I have a daily tolerance of you guys. And this year's like, bro, chill out. They're not going to eat you, bro. What are you saying? And he's like, no, I saw them on Twitter. They said that they were going to eat me. As they're going to eat the rich or something. And this year's like, bro, this year's like, of course I have to babysit this kid. And I'm not even getting paid, dude. But anyways, this year's like, it's fine. Just stick close to me. You'll be fine. Trust me. It'll be all good. And the kid's like, oh, okay. So yeah, they're walking around New York. They're getting pointed out to whatever. And eventually they hit one of the pretzel stands. Okay, look, the pretzel stands in New York City are not as good as people make them out to be. However, the food trucks that are the same around every single corner are a staple, so they decided to go there. And everyone got a pretzel. And, the spoiled kid was taking a bite, and he's like, this poor person's sustenance actually isn't that bad. And Nasir looks at him and says, can you not call it a poor person's sustenance? These are pretty good. He's like, that's what I'm saying. For being a bunch of poor people eating this, these are pretty good. And Nasir's like, dude, you need to stop with that. He's like, what? I'm shocked. I'm recovering from stress right now, Nasir. I can say whatever I want. I'm a victim. And Nasir just looks at this kid. is like, bro really thinks that he's a victim for being in the presence of people with a lower income than his father. Like, just let that sink in for a second. Let that sink in for a second. So yeah, eventually they get back on the bus, and the spoiled kid comes up to Nasir and is like, thank you, Nasir, for protecting me against the plebeians, the peasants. And Nasir's like, what? He's like, you are a noble peasant yourself. Thank you for protecting me against others of your kind. And Nasir just looks at him and is like, you're welcome, bro. And he says, you're welcome, bro, with the straightest face you have ever seen. The least emotion out of a man ever. Because he's just like, this kid, bro. This freaking kid, bro. Yeah, we're going to call a subscriber submitted the next story and final story, Chiji. So anyways, there was a kid in Chiji's class, and this was like senior year of high school. It was a senior spring, too. They were all in college. So, like, grades still matter, because if you fail a bunch of classes, you can still be dropped from your college. But it's not like you need to sweat out your grades as hard as possible. However, this spoiled kid basically got bought into his college, and he's at a point where he doesn't even think the grades matter. He thinks he can completely coast and fail out and, like, or not fail out, but just, like, it doesn't really matter, right? But he also believes that teachers will just be cool, or whatever he was thinking, like, quote-unquote, be cool, and give him at least a C even if he doesn't do anything. So anyways, one day, the spoiled kid, Chiji, and all of them show up to a test. They take it. Spoiled kid fails the test because he didn't write anything. He just wrote his name down and then didn't fill out a single answer. I think the spoiled kid was just so convinced that the teachers were just going to give him a C just for showing up. They didn't even bother trying. Like, not even, like, randomly guessing, which wouldn't have done well either. But didn't even try enough to randomly guess. So when the teacher went around handing back the grades or the papers or whatever, the spoiled kid sees he, like, legitimately failed it because he didn't answer anything. And he's like, hey, what's the meaning of this? And the teacher turns around and says, what's the meaning of this? You didn't fill out a single question. And Chiji just kind of like grabs his metaphorical popcorn and watches the show that's about to go down. Real quick comment, popcorn down below. There's going to be so many people commenting spoiled, thinking that they got the secret word of the day. Well, guess what? It's freaking popcorn today. Anyways, Chiji's just watching this go down. So the spoiled kid gets up and is like, bro, I just want to see in this class. I'm not going to do anything, and you're going to give me a C. And the teacher's like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm sorry. And the spoiled kid gets up and gets all up in the teacher's face. He's like, well, I'm going to make sure you give me a C, dude. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting a C no matter what. And the teacher's just like, no, I'm, what? Like, what do you mean? No. And the spoiled kid's like, I'm going to count to 3, and you're going to give me a C on this paper, or you're going to be in a world of pain. Like, this kid was a massive skadoosh bag, right? Just, I mean, like, it's just how it is. And the teacher's like, no, you can count to 1 billion for all I care about, and I'm not going to give you that C. You're getting an F because you didn't write a single thing down. Look, I would have been generous if you tried, even if you tried poorly. And the kid's like, 1, 2, just stare down at the teacher right there. And Chiji's like, in Chiji's mind, he's like, the spoiled kid is totally bluffing right now. There's not a shot that he's actually going to do anything, right? And the kid's like, all right, I warned you, bro. Boom! This kid legitimately thought that he was, like, above the law. The spoiled kid legitimately thought that rules didn't apply to him because the spoiled kid legitimately swings a right hook and socks the teacher in the face. When this happened, like, 3 kids... Okay, the spoiled kid... A little bit of context. The spoiled kid was not liked. Everyone thought he was a major, like, loser, annoying, like, brat, whatever. So when the kids in the class saw this, they saw this as a perfect opportunity to quote-unquote save the day. So, like, 3 guys immediately jump on top of the spoiled kid when he swings on the teacher. Their explanation is going to be, oh, we just wanted to make sure that he didn't fight the teacher anymore. We were just trying to make sure that we were keeping everyone safe, when in reality, that might have been true. But the main reason that they probably did any of that is literally just so they could get a swing on the spoiled kid, because he was such an annoying brat that they were just like, yes, an opportunity, let's go. Yeah, but sure enough, the spoiled kid swings on the teacher, boom, makes contact with his face, but the spoiled kid's pretty much a little weakling brat dude, so his punch barely did anything. And then he just gets jumped by 3 guys. They just all jump on top of him, just bring him down to the floor, no mercy. And they were like, "We got you, teacher, you're safe." And the teacher's not going to report them for fighting because, like, I don't know, why would he do that? So sure enough, the school security guard comes down, and he's like, "All right, you can let go of the kid." Because, like, all 3 of them had this guy, like, a 3-way headlock or whatever, just completely strapping him down. And the kid's brought to the front office. And guess what? He fails out of the class. You know what also happens? The school that his dad bought him into sees that he's failing classes and fighting people, so they decide to rescind his application. So this kid, yeah, eventually his dad bought him into a different school, but not the school that he wanted to go to. And he also got in a lot of trouble, so the spoiled kid was no longer able to have unlimited credit cards and infinite time on the mega yacht in the Pacific, right? He now had to actually work a job. And the only reason that Chidi knows this is over the summer, Chidi and his friends went to their local ice cream shop, and who did they see behind the counter? Yeah, the spoiled kid.
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have 2 stories for you, the 2 most spoiled kids I have ever heard of. I know you'll enjoy the story, so sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel, watch this video on Spotify if you want to, link in the description, and let's just jump right into it. So anyways, we're going to call the subscriber who submitted the first story Chris. So anyways, Chris was in class, and during this class, like, there was a project you had to do where it's a very common project that you get in school. It's the "what do you want to do when you grow up" project. So Chris, at this point in his life, was in 3rd grade, so he was pretty young at this point, and he was basically given the week to make a little summary of what he wanted to do, and then at the end of the week on Friday, present it to everyone in the class. There was also a kid in Chris's class who we're just going to call the spoiled kid, and he was kind of known as the spoiled kid because he always just acted very entitled. He always had nice fancy stuff on, or always had new clothes or whatever. And most notably is he always became, like, his dad drove this, like, sports car to come pick him up, which, bro, why are you driving the Lambo to pick your kid up from 3rd grade? But anyways, right, he was kind of known as a spoiled kid, and that's kind of irrelevant for right now because Chris really wanted to be a firefighter at that point in his life, so he went back home. He asked his mom if he could go and get, like, a firefighter costume from a Halloween store. They went, they found one, they got it. Chris, like, looked up or asked his mom to help him learn some information about being a firefighter, and he put together a nice little presentation. So now on the day, it is now Friday, it's the day that everyone is presenting, and anyways, right, so, you know, everyone is sitting there. A lot of people are either in costumes, or maybe they're, you know, they have a poster board. Chris happens to be in costume and has a poster board. But you know who doesn't have either, really? The spoiled kid. The spoiled kid literally has neither. He's just sitting there. And people are kind of looking over like, what's going on, bro? Like, why does this kid not have anything? That's kind of crazy. And they're like, I don't know. Or Chris is like, maybe he has something memorized in his head. Maybe I just can't see what he has to, like, present or whatever. But sure enough, it's time for Chris to go up there. Chris goes up, nails his presentation, says, "I want to be a firefighter," says, "What's your firefighter facts?" And sure enough, more people go up. You know, there's doctor, lawyer, astronaut, chemist, mad scientist, SpongeBob SquarePants. There's a lot of professions that people go up and say that they want to do. And that's when it's time for the spoiled kid. So the teacher's going down the list and reading out names. It's like, all right, spoiled kid, it is your time to go up. And the spoiled kid is like, he looks up, he's like, whatever. And he walks up to the front of the class. And he said, "When I am older, I want to be rich." And everyone's kind of sitting there like, okay. And the teacher was kind of looking at him like, and the spoiled kid's like, "That's it, that's my presentation." And the teacher's like, wait a second, spoiled kid. Are you telling me that the only thing that you did was say that, like, I want to be rich and you're done with it? Like, that's all you did? And the spoiled kid's like, "Well, yeah." And the teacher's like, okay. Because, you know, at this point, they didn't really have grades. They got, like, a check plus or a check minus or something. But it really didn't affect them at this point. They were only in 3rd grade. So the teacher wasn't like, "I'm going to fail you." But the teacher's like, well, maybe you can add a little bit more on the spot. And the spoiled kid's like, "Well, I want to be wealthy too? Which, like, bro, rich and wealthy is basically the same thing in a sense. And the teacher's like, no, no, no. What are you going to do to become rich? The spoiled kid's like, I'm just going to become rich. And at this point, the teacher's like, what do you mean? And the spoiled kid is like, well, some people when they're born, they're just like born like better than other people. And they just become rich. And the teacher's like, spoiled kid, like people aren't born better than other people. Everyone is born the same at birth. Like that's ridiculous. And the spoiled kid's like, well, then why do I have all this cool stuff in my house? And when I go to other people's houses, they don't have that cool stuff. Remember, bro was in 3rd grade, but still, like, what? I mean, the thing is, bro, this is definitely the parents coming in and telling some kind of like brainwashing right here. And the teacher's like, spoiled kid, like, that is super disrespectful. Like, everyone has different opportunities and disadvantages in their lives. Just because, like, your parents were able to, like, you know, I'm sure that they worked very hard, but there's also a bit of luck involved in that. Like, you got to be great. Like, you got to be grateful for all that. You can't just say that you got that because you deserve it. Like, you were just happened to be born from them. And the spoiled kid's like, well, I don't understand. Like, I thought the way the world worked was like, if you were rich, that just meant you were better. And poor people are poor because they're worse. And the teacher is just staring at the spoiled kid with his mouth like wide open. And everyone else in class is like kind of turning around and like talking to each other like, dude, what did this kid just say? Did he just say I was worse because my parents make less? He said, I'm inherently worth less? Like, what? And the spoiled kid said, yeah, like, what? And he said, also, what does, like, job have to do with money? And he's like, isn't it just, like, the poor people have jobs and then, you know, the better people, a.k.a. rich people, just they're just able to sit there? And the teacher's like, no, like, you make money from your jobs. The spoiled kid's like, oh, okay, well then I want to be really rich when I grow up. And the teacher's like, spoiled kid, you don't understand. Like, you were put in a fortunate position where your parents have done well. Like, that's awesome. That's great. Whatever, right? But that's not a job. Just having money is not a job. That's not how this works. And everyone could kind of tell that the teacher was starting to get a little bit upset because, look, being a teacher is a thankless profession, right? You have a lot of snotty kids in your class that don't care what you're doing. You also don't get paid at all. Most of the time, teachers are doing it because they believe that their work is important, you know, teaching the next generation of kids. And that is really the only way they get paid, in gratitude. Or not gratitude, but just like knowing they're doing something important. So this teacher was a little mad that this kid, the spoiled kid, was basically like, well, I plan to do nothing and be really lame when I grow up. Like, I'm just going to sit there and, you know, fiend off all the money I'm going to get in my inheritance. Basically what this kid was saying. So anyways, right, the spoiled kid is like, I don't understand. And, you know, the teacher's like, okay, pick a profession, spoiled kid. Pick a profession. And the spoiled kid is starting to get angry himself. He's like, I just want to be rich. I don't care what you're saying. And the teacher is like, that's not a profession. Choose a job. What do you want to do? And this is when the spoiled kid says, Daddy says I don't need a job because he's so rich he'll pay for everything I ever want. And that's when everyone in the class is like, hey, yo, bro, what? Huh? And sure enough, right, the teacher's like starting to get a little upset as well. And the teacher's like, you know what? Let's pretend you had to contribute to society in some way. Let's pretend. So, I mean, look, it's a grown adult fighting with a little kid. So, I don't know if anyone's really the person in the right here. I don't think the kid saying that, like, everyone is inherently worse than him because his parents have money is in the right. But I also don't think an adult fighting with a kid's in the right either. But anyways, right, you know, so it's a heated match. And Chris is just sitting there very awkwardly, very uncomfortable. And that's when the spoiled kid starts to, like, he basically loses it. He starts saying, just because you poor, broke individuals with no money, like, are mad at me and are jealous for what I earned. I earned, bro. Congrats on being the right sperm that went to the right cell. Like, congrats. I don't know. Like, what are you saying? But anyways, he's like, you guys are all so jealous. I can smell the jealousy from here. Oh, man, it reeks of jealousy because you guys are all jealous and haters. I hate how hatery you guys are. You're all jealous and you suck and because you're poor and broke and lame. And the kid literally runs out of the classroom. And he just, like, at this point, right, the teacher's like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? Like, and the teacher's like, okay, class, like, please ignore what just happened. Let's continue on. And basically what happens, the spoiled kid ran out, went to his backpack. They have to keep their backpacks outside. They go out and they grab their books or whatever. And he grabs his, like, portable phone. He dials up the number for his dad. And within 30 minutes, his dad arrives at the school. And so anyways, Chris is in class, and they're finishing up their presentations when the spoiled kid and the spoiled kid's dad barge through the door. And the spoiled kid's dad is like, looks at the teacher and says, my son says that you were shaming him for us being successful. Like, is this true? And the teacher said, today was supposed to be career day. Your son went up there and just said, I want to be rich. So I kind of just pressed him and asked him, okay, well, what career path do you want to do to obtain such status and wealth, right? And he said that, he's going to be rich because he deserves it. We're poor because we don't deserve it. And that, like, you're going to basically pay for everything that he ever wants and that he doesn't need a job. And his dad says, and? You got mad at my son for saying that? That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly true. And the teacher's like, wait, so you believe that, like, the reason why some people are poor and some people are rich is that they're just born as worse off, like they're not as good of a person? And his dad, and the spoiled kid's dad is like, yeah, that's exactly what I think. And he looks down at his son and he says, you know what, son? Good for you. You're taking on like your old dad. Like, you know what? Let's go home. I'm going to take you out for ice cream. The spoiled kid's like, yay, ice cream. And the kid and the father walk off. This is kind of a sad story because, look, at the end of the day, a lot of times views and opinions of kids are really just formed from their environment. And a lot of times parents are like kind of like the main factor in determining what that environment will be. So this is kind of an unfortunate story, but it is what it is. And yeah, so Chris, like, remember, this happened a long time ago for Chris, and this kid kind of a little bit grew out of it. He was always kind of spoiled and entitled, even as he got older, but he wasn't as bad as this. For the next spoiled kid story, we're going to call the subscriber Clarence. So anyways, Clarence was at a restaurant, and it was a bit of a fancier restaurant. It wasn't like drive-through McDonald's or something. It was a bit of a fancier sit-down restaurant, and Clarence and his parents sat down next to another table that probably just got there a couple minutes before them. It was a mom, a dad, and a son. This son was probably he was on the younger side. He might have been the 4th or 5th grade or something. But this son, we're just going to call the spoiled kid because, oh my God, he was the spoiled kid, right? So first of all, Clarence was watching, and, Clarence's parents said, hey, no phones, no iPads, no devices or anything at the table. When you're sitting at the table, please pay attention to, the other people there, it's important to, maintain conversations. And I think that's a good thing, personally. I try and uphold that as much as I possibly can. But anyways, right, Clarence was looking over, and there was a kid, the spoiled kid, had his big old iPad, and he was just on it, and he had the iPad on the table. And Clarence saw the spoiled kid's mom be like, so, spoiled kid, how was school today? And the spoiled kid's like, shut up, Mom, I'm watching Minions. And he sits on his iPad. And, the spoiled kid's dad is like, son, it's not polite to talk to your mother like that. He's like, shut up, Dad, I'm on my iPad watching Minions. And at this point, Clarence is like, wow, this kid's like a real jerk. Like, bro, look, your parents, first of all, they're the ones who raise you. They put a house over your head. They gave you that iPad. You've done none of this before. Yes, they brought you into this world, so, you're entitled to a little bit. But come on now, have a little bit of respect when everything you have in life is because of them. Don't be like, bro, I'm watching Minions, I'm too busy. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. That's ridiculous. And sure enough, right, Clarence watches as this kid is like, shut up, Mom, I'm watching Minions. I'm going to be on my iPad. And so sure enough, right, the spoiled kid's parents kind of give up, which, look, if I'm going to be a parent, I'm not giving up. I'm not tolerating disrespect like that. But anyways, right, so sure enough, this kid is on his iPad, and he says he doesn't have the volume down low. He literally has the volume cranked up to the maximum. Yes, this was a restaurant with a lot of people. There was noise. There was ambiance. But within that ambiance, you could hear Minion Rush gameplay. It was the loudest thing in the room. And the thing is, right, maybe the person sitting at the end, like at very far away, couldn't hear like the minion rush in the background from this iPad. But since Clarence and his family were sitting right next to them, like their conversation was being drowned out by minion sounds, like from the movie. He's like, oh my God. And the thing is, right, this spoiled kid, you might be thinking, wow, this kid's disrespecting his parents and he's on his iPad being super loud. This must be the worst he gets. No, trust me. He gets so much worse. Real quick, comment spoiled if you made it this far into the video. I really would appreciate it just to see who made it this far. Also, if you want to support the channel, literally just continue watching these videos. I keep on seeing comments from people saying, I've watched 5 videos today. I've watched 20 videos this week. I just want to let you know that when I see those comments, I try and heart them as much as I can. And even if I don't, just know I really appreciate it because watching a bunch of videos is what is helping the channel get promoted as much as it is. So I really, really, really do appreciate it. And also, yes, we are on Spotify. It is linked in the description. But also, if you look up Connor Pugs, it'll be the only Connor Pugs podcast, I do believe. And you can watch these videos on the go or whatever, right? And also, don't forget to use code ConnorPugs on GamerSupps for 10% off. It helps me. It helps you. You'll love to see it. And finally, if you want to submit your own stories, these are subscriber-submitted stories, go to my Instagram account, ConnorPugs. It's also in the description. Follow me, and then DM me your stories. And don't say, oh, I have a story. Do you want to hear it? Just DM me the stories. A lot of times, even if I use the stories, I won't even respond, just in case I change my mind a little bit later. So always be checking in with the videos to see if your story was used. And also, if I do use your story, there's a good chance I alter most of the details just to make sure that it doesn't get back to the person and you get in trouble. And also just keeping it good like that. Anyways, let's get back to it. So sure enough, Clarence is listening over. And the other table with the spoiled kid, they get their food, right? Like, food was given out, like, handed over. And, you know, on this, like, dish or whatever, there was, like, a main course. And then there was, like, vegetables. And the thing is, right, I get it. If you don't like your vegetables, you don't like your vegetables. There's not a lot that I can do about it personally. I think you should eat your vegetables. I think that it's important to eat your greens. However, if you don't, whatever, man. I'm not in charge of you. However, what you should not be doing is taking your broccoli and throwing it across the room to random people. That's not what you should be doing, to say the least, right? So anyways, this, you know, Clarence is sitting there, and he's not even looking at the spoiled kid's table when he feels something hit his face. And he looks down at the table, and there's a piece of broccoli on the frickin' table, bro. There's a piece of broccoli on the table. And sure enough, right, you know, he looks over and the spoiled kid is picking up the broccoli on his plate and chucking it across the room. Just like throwing it across the place, hitting other people. They're looking over and the spoiled kid's mom is like, spoiled kid, don't throw your food. Don't, like, this is not a food fight. Like, have some respect. And the spoiled kid's like, shut up, Mom. I'm going to do whatever I want. And at this point, right, you know, Clarence is looking over. He's like, wow, like, this is kind of disrespectful. This is kind of, like, not a great thing. And sure enough, the spoiled kid continues to just take fistfuls of broccoli and peas and just throwing them all around the place. And the thing is, no one at the restaurant who works there noticed this, because I'm pretty sure they come over and ask him to stop. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they think it's such a great thing. They say, oh, sir, thank you so much for chucking your mushed up vegetables in your hand all over the place. Thank you so much. You're so valuable to our customer service. You add to our atmosphere with all the vegetables flying around. Like, no, dude. Like, no one actually wants that. But this is not as bad as the spoiled kid gets. Because the next thing he does is finally, right, he gets bored. He eats, like, a little bit off his plate. And then he leaves the table. And the spoiled kid's dad is like, spoiled kid, get back here, sit down. We're going to have a nice conversation. He's like, no, shut up, Dad. He just kind of just starts walking around. And that's when Clarence watches as the spoiled kid approaches his table. And Clarence is like, oh my God, like, what's going on here? And Clarence had like a big thing of fries because he got steak, and he got steak with fries on the side. And he sees the spoiled kid come over to the table. And Clarence and his parents are like, hello there. Spoiled kid is like, hello. And he literally takes his big greasy palms and grabs a handful of fries and runs away. And Clarence is like, hey, like, what, bro, like, come back. And the thing is, right, he took like 3/4 of the fries. he took most of Clarence's fries. And at this restaurant, the fries were like the greatest fries around. Clarence has been thinking about these fries for weeks. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. The fries are good. So Clarence is upset, and he starts looking over, and he sees the spoiled kid is going table to table, literally taking people's stuff. He's going from table to the next table, to the next table, to the next table, literally just nabbing stuff from people. And people are like, hey, like, what's going on here? And that's when someone gets up and talks to a manager of the restaurant, pointing at the spoiled kid. And Clarence watches as the manager is, like, looking over, the person complaining is pointing at the spoiled kid, and shows the spoiled kid going from table to table, like, grabbing stuff. And that's when the manager walks over to the spoiled kid's parents and says, hey, guys, you got to control your kid. And they're like, hey, like, we've been trying to. He's been so bad. And the manager's like, I mean no disrespect or anything, but if you can't control him, I'm gonna have to ask all of you to leave. And the thing is, the spoiled kid heard this, and the spoiled kid is like, you can't tell me to do anything. And the manager is like, I'm the manager of this restaurant. If you continue to take stuff from people and you don't sit down and eat the dinner like everyone else with your parents, I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. I think it's a pretty fair request. And the spoiled kid gets super angry. He's like, you can't tell me what to do. So the spoiled kid runs away, right? And his parents are like, I'm so sorry, I'll go get him. However, they're not expecting what's about to happen next. And what's about to happen next is that the spoiled kid, the spoiled kid starts running around and, like, he takes one of the salt and pepper shakers and chucks it through the window. And the window apparently was one of those, like, glass panel things. It wasn't like a big thick window. It goes right through the glass panel, shatters. And the glass shattering noise is enough to get everyone's attention in the restaurant. So they all turn their heads and they're looking over and they're just like, what's going on here? And everyone turns and they look at the spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid is literally just standing there. Like, he's just standing there watching everyone watch him. And he's next to a big thing of broken glass. And the manager angrily turns to his parents and is like, if you don't control your kid and get him out of here, I'm going to call the police to do that for them. And the parents are like, he's just a kid. Why would you call the police? Shattered glass noise number 2. And they look over and they see the spoiled kid has taken a stool and thrown it through a normal glass window, which is insane, right? And they're like, okay, point proven. So the two parents run over to the spoiled kid and are like, sweetie, we need to go home. And the spoiled kid's like, no, Mom and Dad, I do what I want because I can do anything. This is my world. And he literally just continues. He takes another chair and his dad is like, spoiled kid, if we go back home, we can get ice cream. And spoiled kid's like, of course we're getting ice cream when we go home. When you take me home, I'm going to get ice cream no matter what. But I want to keep doing what I'm doing right now. So at this point, right, Clarence looks over and sees the manager literally going over and, like, calling the police at this point. He sees the manager being like, nah, bro, this is not happening. Not in my restaurant. And so sure enough, right, he calls the police. And at this point, the spoiled kid and his parents are like, okay, come on, spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid's like, not today. And he takes another, chair, throws it through another window. At this point, right, a lot of people are getting up to leave because this is ridiculous. And sure enough, right, the police do arrive. And the spoiled kid doesn't see the police. And he picks up another chair when he feels a bit of resistance. Like there's someone else tugging on the chair. So the spoiled kid thinks it's his dad. He's like, don't try and stop me, Dad. And he turns around and he's looking directly at an officer who he's holding onto the chair. And he's like, oh my God. He drops the chair and he runs away. But he runs over to the exit, which is the door. And who do you think is standing in the door? Another officer. And he starts crying. He's like, it wasn't me. It was my parents and that kid. And he points over to Clarence, the subscriber. And Clarence is like, bro, what? You took fries from me and now you're blaming me for causing damages at a restaurant. Anyways, police officers are told by the manager, no, it was this kid. And so anyways, police officers, the manager, the parents, and this kid are all standing around. And they're basically just talking about damages, like how it's going to be settled, how all of that. Basically, the restaurant is, 1, banning them from ever coming back, and 2, sending them a bill for, the damages done to the window. And the cops basically say, like, hey, like, the manager said that, he's not going to press any charges or have any police action against your son, so he won't be going to juvie or anything like that, or be on watch or something, but, like, you need to be a better parent. And they're like, I know. And with that, they left. And, like, basically, most people at this point had left. Clarence and his parents had finished eating, and they were paying the check. And Clarence just looked over, and man, bro just saw, like, he just saw a massive pile of glass, bro. He just saw a massive pile of glass. And, the moral of the story is, if you're a parent, like, sometimes you got to be forceful. Not physically, but sometimes you got to put your foot down and not let your kid run you, because they'll turn into something like that. Anyways, if you want to support the channel, go ahead and watch another video after
Click on the video
one.
on screen. Today I got a story time of probably one of the most spoiled kids to ever exist. So let's just hop right into it. Subscribe if you like stories. And let's call today's subscriber, let's call him Todd. So in Todd's neighborhood, Nerf guns were really like the big thing, and they had been like the big thing for a while, right? The last couple years, all the kids have been like collecting Nerf guns, and they go over to each other's houses or whatever. But, this happened to be the last week of school, and on the final day, they had a really big kind of like Nerf gun fight, big whatever, right, thing planned, and it was planned in one of the kids' houses. And Todd was the one who had a lot of Nerf guns himself, and, he supplied some of them. And the idea was that everyone would bring some Nerf guns or whatever, and, like, if you wanted to try someone else's, like, whatever, you'd be able to rotate through. And it was basically, like, a big tournament, because they had, like, casually played with each other, and they'd had some, like, 1v1s or 2v2s, or even 3v3 at some point, right? But, they'd never had... Sorry, my throat is not feeling so great. And so anyways, right, let's just skip forward to the day of the big Nerf battle royale type thing, kind of like a round robin type event. What I was trying to say earlier before my voice exploded, by the way, was that they've never really had a big tournament where everyone kind of fought against each other to see who really was like the best Nerf guy ever, whatever, right? It wasn't even that deep to most of them. And they basically included every kid in the neighborhood who is kind of close, because, they can't be leaving one of the guys out. And there was one kid who lived in the biggest house at the end of the road, and he was known as the spoiled kid. Not because his parents made a lot of money, or I guess not a lot compared to like, I don't know, Elon Musk or, Bill Gates or someone, but a lot compared to, like, everyone else's parents, right? He wasn't known as the spoiled kid because he had a lot of money. I mean, I don't really think that's necessarily fair. I think it's how you act and how you use that money, if you use it for, like, I don't know if it goes to your head or not, And the spoiled kid was definitely one of the kids where the money most definitely went to his head, because he was always acting super entitled. He kind of acted like he had no perspective, which he really didn't, but he was kind of a jerk about it. But they didn't feel like they could really, like, leave him out. And the parents were like, oh, you should invite so-and-so over or whatever. And they're like, fine, Mom. So sure enough, right, let's just skip ahead to the day. And it's the day of the big Nerf battle, and one of the kids, kind of a relevant, sorry kid, one of the kids, it was at his house, and it was just a neighborhood kid, and everyone came over, and Todd, he got his backpack, he threw some of his Nerf guns in there. Todd had like 2 or 3 Nerf guns, and, he couldn't really get a lot. He didn't really get a new one for the last year, because his parents were kind of like, they're having a tough moment, right, financially. So he really kind of had to conserve the Nerf guns that he had, but he wanted to bring over all the ones so that his friends could try out some of them if they didn't have them themselves. So sure enough, everyone gets there, and they all had their Nerf guns. The only thing that they weren't sharing were the Nerf bullets, which if you've ever played with the Nerf guns before, you know that those things, like, if someone brings them, how are you going to know that, like, those bullets are yours or whatever? And they always get lost in the house. So the kid who was hosting everyone said he'd supply the bullets, and his mom brought a big thing of, like, the foam Nerf bullets, like, bought it from, like, Target, like, recently. So they all supply, like, loaded up or whatever. There were some Nerf guns that needed specialized bullets, but, like, you remembered those if those were yours, like, they were very different and you could pick them up. And anyways, right, the spoiled kid got there, and he literally, like, his mom dropped him off with a big crate, and he came into the house with a massive crate full of all the newest Nerf guns ever, all the newest contraptions, all the newest, like, Nerf gear, whatever, and everyone's like, whoa! So everyone, of course, goes over and, like, tries to see whatever, look at all the new Nerf guns, try them out, and Within like 30 minutes, like the guy who's hosting it, which is at the house, is, all right, guys, this, like, we should really start the tournament. So they decide to start the tournament. They say, all right, so this is a single shot elimination. If you are hit once, like, please, this is the honor system. It's not that deep. We'll play multiple rounds, but the first round in, we're going to play, like, if you're hit, please just, like, admit it. And, you're out if you're hit. So anyways, people disperse, they grab their Nerf guns, they fill it with Nerf bullets, and they start playing around. And sure enough, right, Todd snipes someone pretty perfectly and they get hit. So, sure enough, like they go down. The person, like, in the neighborhood, the random NPC in this story, right, he admits he got hit because, he got hit. And he's like, he also realizes it's a Nerf battle and it's not that deep. However, right, a little while later, it eventually comes to a point where the kid who's hosting, right, shoots, the spoiled kid with a Nerf gun, and he gets him, right? The Nerf bullet kind of hits the kid in the leg, and the kid, and it's not like the back of the leg, so maybe the spoiled kid didn't realize it was the front of the leg. And also the spoiled kid literally looked down when the thing hit him, looked at the bullet, and watched it roll on the ground after it hit him in the leg. What I'm trying to make clear here is that the spoiled kid saw that he got hit. Because shortly after, right, the guy, let's just call him Ben. We're bringing back that meme. I saw some of you guys feeling sad that meme was gone. Basically, the meme is, for you guys who don't know, whenever there's someone who I just need to give a name to, I always say Ben. So anyways, right, Ben, who is the guy who's hosting, is like, hey, dude, I got you. And the spoiled kid's like, no, you definitely didn't. And there was another kid who was kind of hiding, being like, time out, like, yeah, I definitely saw you got hit. And the spoiled kid's like, no, Ben just paid you off. And at this point, right, Ben's like, all right, guys. And he kind of like said, all right, we're time out. And everyone comes out, they're hiding or whatever. And Ben's like, dude, like, it's so, like, I saw that you got hit, right? And even over here, this guy points to Ben number 2. Okay, I'm not actually going to call him that, but he's like, this guy saw you got hit. Everybody here saw you got hit, bro. Like, you just got to, like, accept it. We're playing more rounds, dude. It's not even a big deal. And the spoiled kid is like, well, I'm not upset because I got hit. I'm upset because I didn't get hit, and you're cheating. And at this point, right, Todd, the person who sent in the story, which, by the way, you can send in stories to my Instagram or just follow it if you want to, right? It's in the description. Also, I'll be making an email soon. I've just been busy. I apologize for that. But anyways, right, at this point, Todd is realizing that there's a bit of tension growing in the room. And you could see that the spoiled kid was getting more and more kind of like upset. He was getting more and more angry. Instead of at this point kind of just letting it go and being like, well, we're playing more rounds of Nerf battles. Like, it really doesn't matter. Instead, the spoiled kid was like, I'm going to die on this hill if it's the last thing I do. Kind of that type of attitude. So sure enough, right, the Ben, the guy who's hosting it, wasn't really feeling like letting this kid get away with it, because he, like, Ben and basically everyone else there kind of had the impression that kid was like super spoiled and always got what he wanted, and Ben wasn't about to give him what he wanted once again. He just didn't really feel like that's what he wanted to do. Real quick, comment spoiled down below. If you want a heart on your comment, that will be the secret word of the day. And also, if you want to support the channel, binge watch videos. Like after this one, go watch like 3 or 4 more. Please let me know if you're doing this in the comment section down below so I can heart your comment and say thank you, because genuinely that has supported me and the channel so much, and I really appreciate it, and I just want to say thank you. Anyways, back to the story. It's about to get crazy. And then, yeah, sure enough, the spoiled kid starts getting angrier and angrier, and Ben isn't backing down, and Todd is like, all right, this is getting a little heated in here. And the spoiled kid is like, you're cheating, and then points to the kid next to Ben, you are cheating, and then turns around and points at Todd, I almost call him Tom. He's like, you're cheating too, and Todd's just like, bro, what? I just got down here, bro, what are you talking about? He's like, you're all complacent to cheating, which makes you the biggest cheaters of them all. I'm not gonna play with you guys anymore and let you use my cool stuff. And with that, the spoiled kid gets so angry, and remember, he's holding Todd's Nerf gun, which Todd only has 3 of, and his parents aren't in a point where they could buy another one. And the spoiled kid is like, screw you guys, kind of does like a Cartman type thing, but I don't know if he actually says that specifically, but he's like, you guys suck. And then he takes the Todd's like Nerf gun, lifts it above his head, and throws it on the ground as hard as possible. And it is a like 2 or 3 year old Nerf gun, and those things are plastic, and with enough force, yes, you will break it. And sure enough, the Nerf gun is just thrown on the ground. It hits the ground. The middle cartridge type thing, like the plastic that was holding it in, breaks, and the cartridge flies out. The handle is like cracked, and like the shaft barrel thing is splintered, and the Nerf gun is basically rendered completely useless. And Todd is just like, dude, that's like 33% of my Nerf guns, bro, and like I can't get another one. And the spoiled kid looks at Todd because he realizes that was Todd's Nerf gun. He's like, just have your dad buy another one. And that was the words that the spoiled kid walked out of the door with. And yes, he left his big crate with all the Nerf guns in it. He was going to come by later to pick it up. He knew that they didn't dare like steal from him or anything like that. Yeah, so the spoiled kid walked out, and everyone's kind of looking around, and people kind of know, they're all at a point where they can't be spending a crazy amount of money, and, well, they're all kids. They're all, like, 12 or 13 at this point, or at least that's what the subscriber said he was, so I'm assuming he's not playing Nerf guns with, I don't know, 30-year-old men who work at a bike store down the road, but who knows, man. Let's just make the assumption that they're all like 12 or 13, and when you're 12 or 13, dude, you're broke. $10 is a massive deal. Like, $10, and like, oh my god, like, Bill Gates, like, be prepared, I'm coming for the richest man in the world spot type, you know how it is, right? So they all, they're all in a point where they can't really buy that much, but they also kind of know of, like, Todd's parents' situation. They kind of had an idea. They didn't know how bad it was specifically, but they knew that, that Nerf gun that, the spoiled kid broke, wasn't going to be easily, like, replaced or anything like that. So they're all like, bro, we're so sorry. Like, you can always use one of ours. Like, and Todd, it was a very nice offer, and he thanked them for it. But there's a difference between being able to borrow your friend's Nerf guns, which they already did, and not having one of your own broken. Like, there's a big difference right there. So the mood of the whole Nerf gun event was kind of ruined. So they kind of like closed. I think they had one more round, but they were planning on having like 8 rounds and doing a real round robin tournament type thing. But they could just tell by the end of the second round that they just didn't have any energy left, as that totally killed the vibe. And Todd, left, and they all kind of left Ben's house. And when Todd went back home, he kind of explained to his mom, like, hey, Mom, like, this is what happened today. And she's like, oh, sweetie, like, I'm so sorry that happened. You do know that I can't buy you another one right now. And Todd's like, yeah, I 100% understand. Like, that's I didn't expect you to, and that's kind of why it's making me a little sad. And Todd's mom's like, well, I'm going to be really busy, but I know you have tomorrow off, and, the spoiled kid, it says his actual name, but spoiled kid, right? The spoiled kid doesn't live that far away. Maybe you can walk down, talk to, his mom, and maybe she'd be able to repay you for it. I know it's a little awkward, and maybe I would have done it myself, but I'm just really busy, and maybe she'd also have a bit more, I don't know, sympathy. God, I almost call it like the music thing. Sympathy for someone if they're coming over and they're like 12, and give her the puppy. Like, you know what, Todd? Give her the puppy dog eyes. Like, she'll give you like a nice little tip on that too. So Todd's like, all right, like whatever. Next day rolls around. Todd walks down the street. He's like, this is going to be a little bit awkward, but I got to do what I got to do. So Todd, like, walks over, and he knows exactly where the spoiled kid lives, even though he's never been over to the spoiled kid's house, as he doesn't really like him that much, so they never really had sleepovers or anything. It is very clear which house is his. It is the big, massive house at the end of the street. So he opens up their kind of, like, fence or whatever, and he walks in, and the plants on both sides are beautiful, and there's someone mowing the lawn right now. The lawn is pristine. It's been a hot summer, or it is a hot summer since I guess it just started as school just ended, and everyone's lawn was kind of feeling it, but the spoiled kid definitely had probably the most expensive water bill, probably more expensive than half the houses on the street. They were keeping things looking luscious and wonderful, and Todd was like, okay, well, let's just get this over with. So he goes up to the doorbell and he rings it, and he's like, all right, this is going to be super awkward if the spoiled kid shows up, but I'll have to deal with it. But thankfully, right, the spoiled kid's mom, or who Todd presumes is the spoiled kid's mom, maybe it's his nanny, but he finds out pretty quickly that it's not his nanny, shows up at the door. She's like, oh, Todd, like, how's it going? I heard that, I remember that spoiled kid, says his actual name, of course, but I remember spoiled kid was heading over to Ben's house to go play with his Nerf guns. I think he needs to pick them up at some point, but he said he wasn't really in a rush. And Todd's like, yeah, like it was a lot of fun to play with him while we did. There's just one little detail I gotta talk about. And then Todd goes on to explain that the spoiled kid disagreed, quote unquote, with one of the rulings and got really upset and ended up breaking, Todd's Nerf gun. And Todd said that he was kind of in a position, or his family was in a position, where that Nerf gun really could not be replaced by them. And by the end of Todd's explanation, the spoiled kid's mom is like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's got a little bit of a temper. Gives a little laugh, is like, oh, my little spoiled kid. Like, he's a hothead, just like his dad. Ha ha ha. Then she just gives this little nervous look, and Todd feels extra uncomfortable. He's like, all right, now, I'm not your family therapy, bro. I just want my $40, or however much. I just want my money for my Nerf gun, bro. I don't want to hear this. And so sure enough, right, Todd's mom was, oh, just stay right here. Just stay right here. And she goes into the house, and Todd's kind of looking around, and, he's looking at the, the nice kind of like flowers and bushes around. And eventually she comes back, and she opens up her wallet, which is probably some like Hermes, Gucci, X, Supreme Brick type wallet. And she opens it up, and she pulls out two 20s, which, Todd wasn't even really expecting, he's expecting like $10, if that. But $40? Like, he could probably buy a nice Nerf gun with that. Maybe a few extra Nerf bullets. Actually, I don't know how much Nerf guns go for these days. I haven't played with one in a while. Low-key, if my friends wanted to, I would 100% be down, but that's beyond the point. So he takes the money. He's like, oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. I really do. And, Todd is just like, all right, well, it was nice seeing you. And the spoiled kid's mom's like, wait, stay right here for one more second. And Todd's like, no, okay. And yeah, so sure enough, the spoiled kid's mom is like, spoiled kid, says his actual name, but says first name, last name, get down here right now. And you can hear like a little scream like, Mom, I'm playing Xbox. Well, I can barely do these voices with the condition my throat's in right now. Oh, my God. But eventually, spoiled kid's mom's like, I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi if you don't get down here right now. And he's like, fine. And then he eventually comes down, and his hair's all matted, and he's like, whatever, he's in his sweats. It's a typical Sunday morning. You know how it is, right? It's summertime. It could be a Tuesday in the afternoon for all we know, right? Same situation. But sure enough, right, the spoiled kid's mom is like, I was just told that you broke, your friend Todd's, Nerf gun. And he's like, friend. She's like, stop it. And you know what? You're going to be punished. And he's like, whatever, bring it on. And the spoiled kid's mom is like, for the next 15 minutes, you cannot play on the Xbox. And in Todd's mind, he was like, oh, so this is like a gag. Like this is kind of like a joke, a prank. This is like a gag punishment to make me laugh and to throw him off. And then he gets the real punishment. And then Todd realizes, wait, no, that's the actual punishment. And he kind of expected the spoiled kid to pretend to be upset and just deal with it, when he really realizes that he got off with a great, super easy punishment. But the spoiled kid is like, no, Mom, why? I need the Xbox. I need a nap. And the spoiled kid's mom is like, well, that's what you get for breaking stuff. You can't be breaking other people's things. It's not a good thing to do. And, the spoiled kid's like, Mom, no, I was in the middle of a game. And then the spoiled kid legitimately starts breaking into tears. And his mom was like, "Oh, honey, don't start crying." And Todd is just standing there like, this is both the most pathetic and awkward experience. Like, this is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen, and this is also the most awkward experience I've ever had to live through. I mean, like, are you serious, man? Like, can you have a little bit of dignity in front of me? He didn't say that out loud, but that's what he was thinking. And sure enough, right, the spoiled kid is just like, "Oh, Mom, but I was in the middle of a Call of Duty game."
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it, do it.